Welcome everyone to another episode of The Creative Minds. Joining me here today is Elissa. I want you, first of all, to start off by introducing yourself, telling us a bit more about who you are. And honestly, it's a complete honor to have you on the show. So yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Well, it's always it's as difficult to introduce yourself as it is to introduce someone else, I feel, because introductions are so limiting. But I'm a I'm like a third culture kid, Arab American who grew up in Paris, and I've been living in the Middle East the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of found my calling in feminism. So I've been working in this women empowerment space for the last 10 years, basically since I graduated. I started Womena.
You found your calling in feminism, and you just started Womena after finishing university. First of all, how did you find your calling? Like, how did you know that this is what you want to stand up for?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and very specific moments actually that I can point
Yeah.
to.
Mm.
I think I was definitely one of those kids who graduated from university without necessarily a clear path. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but and even the degree that I studied in global communications, it was because it was broad enough that it would apply to anything the day that I figured out, a job where I would start in a certain industry. And then entrepreneurship was something that I'd been toying around with for a while. I always wanted to be my own boss. And I think of all these franchise ideas or just, restaurants that I might want to open one day. And, when I moved to the UAE, I saw the UAE. I was in France my entire life. So moving to the UAE felt like the new world. It felt like the land of opportunity. And it was honestly, what they've been able to do in such a short amount of time is phenomenal. And I really do think I wouldn't have gotten to where I am in my career now had I done this in Europe or in the US, in a place that's so saturated with entrepreneurs and with investors and with this competitiveness. In Dubai, I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to start an angel network for women. And it was more, again, based on business ideas. Like I just wanted to be in business. And then I just wanted to be a smart business person. So I was thinking about what could work. What am I learning about? What do I see as an opportunity here? And I kind of went through any idea, but it wasn't a purpose. It was just like, oh, I want to start whatever. Let's see what sticks. And in that process, we decided to launch an investor network. And we immediately thought, well, most investors are men. So all of our clients are going to be men. And we were then met with, wait a minute, but we're like, my co-founder at the time, who left before I pivoted the company, we were 23-year-old college graduates. Like there were definitely there wasn't a precedent for young women like us teaching the average age of an investor, 52 years old, men in gray suits, what to do with their money. They were not going to listen to us. So shifting our perspective towards women was actually a business idea. It was a strategic business decision at the beginning. And it actually turned out to be my introduction to the world of feminism, because lo and behold, what we've been raised with up until that point, 2013, was that feminism happened in the 70s and in the 20s. Like it was something that women fought for to get the right to vote. And now we're all equal. And you don't really realize the inequality until you're in the real world, and you don't really realize what kind of a disadvantage you are as a woman in the business world until you really enter it. And when we started targeting women is when I started reading up on the disadvantages of women, like where they're, how they were disposing of their income, what they were allowed to do with their money, in which countries, how often were they involved in investment decisions or entrepreneurship decisions. And I started reading about entrepreneurs that are disproportionately not getting funded because they're female, or even worse, female of color, because women of color are at even more of a disadvantage. But I started reading up more and more on feminist issues, and I found myself reading a World Health Organization report about FGM, about female genital mutilation in the Middle East. And I didn't realize how high the statistic was. At that time, it was about 90% of women in Egypt have undergone FGM. And that blew my mind, because that means 9 out of the 10 Egyptian women that I know would have undergone that. And of course, this is within certain classes, but the general population, the statistic blew my mind that this was the case in 2013. And I was like, this is so stupid. I don't understand. And I went down this feminist wormhole, educating myself, and realized that this was one of the stupidest things in the world, because there was it never clicked. It still doesn't click in my head how half the world's population can be completely dismissed and disadvantaged for the simple fact that they were born with a XX chromosome, because you were just born with a vagina. All of a sudden, the world treats you differently. And all of a sudden, all of these rules apply to you, about you, that you have no control over. And I thought that was so stupid that it would be the easiest thing to fix. This is what I have to do. This is really such a simple thing to solve in the world, in my head at that time, is what I thought. I thought this was simple. I thought, how can you we're beyond this. How can you completely just hate on an entire 51% of the population for something that's out of their control with made up myths? And I thought, I was like, that's it. I'm going to dedicate myself to feminism. Leonardo DiCaprio's on the environment already. You've got all the other Hollywood celebs on looking out for animals. That's great. I want to be dedicating myself to my community, which is women, and women specifically in the Middle East. And I thought I could knock that out in 10 years and I'll fix the whole thing.
So what is it that you want to fix? Like, I mean, through Womena, what is it that you're going after? So I know there's some content creation that you're doing, but can you explain to us a bit more about what it does and how you're planning on changing that?
Yeah, how I'm planning on changing the world?
Yeah,
absolutely. With my company, Womena, is going to change the world. It's you nailed it. Actually, you say we do some content. We do a lot of content, and it's the content that is actually the solution. So what I realized was that the root of all of these injustices lies with two main aspects. One is ego. And ego in every aspect. Ego in relation to your status in society, your power. The people that are currently in power want to hold on to that. And so their egos will never allow them to treat other people humanely. It will lower them in the world if they do that. And I can't actually fix that issue. What I can fix is the perception towards us. People's perceptions dictate how they act towards others. So if you perceive me as a threat, if you perceive me as oppressed, if you perceive me as attractive, however you perceive me, you will behave differently with me. And what I'm hoping to do is shift people's perceptions towards women. And first and foremost, with my community, with Arab women, to be able to humanize them, to recognize us as not an other, but as the same, as one of, a whole human race, and that we are not what you've been seeing in the media for the last 100 years. We are not the stories that you have been told. We are so much more than that, and actually surprisingly way more relatable to your reality, right? And we don't look just one way. We don't live just one way. We don't believe in just one thing. Just like wherever you're from, I can't just take everyone and put them in one little category. So I want to showcase the diversity of Arab women and the diversity of abilities, accomplishments, and stories that come out of our community. Because to be honest, the internet wasn't populated with those stories before. We did a very interesting exercise back in 2016 where we typed into Google Arab women are. And we took the first set of responses on the first few pages, and all of them were words like Arab women are oppressed, Arab women are controlled, Arab women are suppressed or repressed or miserable or sad or dangerous. And that was like imagine being a young Arab girl and Googling the definition of yourself, you know, in the world on the internet, and seeing that the first few set of responses were all negative. And how is that making you think about yourself? So that's one perception worth changing, is for my own community, but also the perception of others towards us. If they want to learn about us, then that's the news that they're getting. And I'm very happy to say that you won't find that on those pages, you know, on Google anymore. If you type Arab women are, the internet is populated with much more diverse stories from our region now, thanks to a lot of different media companies that have come up, but only in the last like 10 years.
Yeah. And you talked a lot about perception, changing the perception of women. And so from what I understood, you said what you're trying to do is you're trying to create enough content showing the diversity of women in the MENA region, in a sense where through that showing of content, you can change people's perspective. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The dehumanizing of the African American in the United States is so deeply rooted in the stories that are told and the way the stories are told, and which stories are definitely not told.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so it's the same plight for recognition. It's the same plight. When you say Black Lives Matter, it's saying that recognize us, we matter. We need to matter as much as you. And that's the same thing in feminism. That's the same thing for female communities that just want to be recognized. And the perceptions are changing, you know. What it was the biggest change to the perception of African Americans in the United States, and that was the popularization of African American artists, musicians, television stars, singers, songwriters, the content that they put out, the songs, the stories, the music that they created. It's the same thing with the LGBT community. When the LGBT community in the West especially comes out and they're on TikTok and they're in movies and they're naturally normalized in the content, it helps us accept and normalize the same visuals, right? They're it's not threatening anymore. It's not new. It becomes something that we've been exposed to, known. Exactly.
Yeah. So we talked about feminism a lot. You did mention feminism a lot, but what does it mean? Because sometimes feminism can be taken to a complete extreme where women just want to be fighting constantly. But what does feminism mean to you?
To be honest, I think any type of social movement like feminism needs an entire spectrum of people to be fighting for that equality, right? And when we say fighting, sometimes it's literal, because like the civil rights movement, sometimes some fighting has to be literal and strategic. You have to be physically present, right? You have to shock. And sometimes feminism is a bit more strategic, and you have quieter people who maybe are working more behind the scenes in education and academia and studying gender, or maybe they're in law or they're in politics, right? So for me, feminism is a term that scares people, because they don't understand the word, and because it part of the narrative of feminism that the media has taught us, the perception that the current Western mainstream media creates of feminism is that it's violent and it's scary. So if that's what you think feminism is, then you're actually a victim of a narrative that's been constructed so that we don't get towards equality. Feminism just simply means universal opportunities and universal rights, human rights for all, whether you're male or female, equal rights and equal opportunities under law, protected and governed in society. It does not mean, and we can totally get into it if you want, about the fears of why people really do fear what, you know, the violent, aggressive story of feminism that the media has fed us, why they fear that so much.
Yeah, please go ahead if you can.
Yes, I mean, we can.
Please.
I think it's beyond just violence, right? Because obviously we see violence in day-to-day life, and we see anger a lot around us. But when it comes from women, and when the traditional narrative of a woman is that she is docile and that she is submissive and that she is caring and that she is nurturing and that she puts others above herself, fighting for feminism means that you can carry the exact opposite to that, as well as I can be calm and nurturing and loving and beautiful, you know, like beautifully adoring to others. But I also want to make sure that I am rightfully respected under the law, and that I have equal rights to the person that, you know, to another person who happens to be male. I don't understand why that's different. However, my temperament is, I can be loving and caring. That has nothing to do with, you know, the rights that I should have. And people get scared because they think that, oh, feminism means that we release women from all of these other characteristics, but it has nothing to do with it. If women feel anger, which they are completely allowed to feel, just like everybody feels anger, that scares the shit out of a lot of people, because you don't know what to do with a woman who's angry. You know what to do with a woman who's scared. You can control a scared person. You can't control angry populations of people. So the unpredictability, the uncontrollability, whether it's women or it's anybody, is always scary. It's scary when you see a Black Lives rally protest. People say that's terrifying to them. Why is it terrifying? You were probably out there protesting something else the other day and you were scaring people. So it's really about the idea that it directly conflicts with our image of women. And I think specifically with older men in positions of power, they recognize that women in society are treated lesser than. And the idea that making people equal might make it so that they have to experience the same lesser than feeling they don't want to have to go through, right? If that's what that means, because power can be shared. What people think sometimes in positions of power, if they have to hold on to it, they can't share the power. There isn't enough. I need more for me, right? And they don't realize that by being equal, they empower everybody. They think that by being equal, they have to lower themselves to the same shitty treatment that they offer other people.
100%.
And that's just not true.
With what you're building now, with the content creation, with the company, what were like some of the hardest challenges that you faced building it up as a person who just finished university? Like, it's like how do you do that?
I don't even know how I did it. I look back, I didn't study finance. I didn't study economics in university. I never was informally trained in finance. I literally was just so delusionally optimistic about running my own damn business that I was going to go with whatever idea I felt most passionate about. And I really, first things first is that I actually, I clicked with somebody in university who became a co-founder in the first version of my business when we were an investment. We launched as an investment platform and we did a hard pivot. And having met someone that I really believed in, who really believed in me, helped a lot, because there was a thing of, we just want to work together. We have a good vibe. We're going to just figure, like, let's just, we'll see what sticks. What are your ideas? What are my ideas? And we kind of went through it. And I was following the passion, and what felt right and what felt easy, like it was aligned, you know. That's how you kind of like, you know, it's the same as how I knew when I found my purpose. It was when I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had to just keep doing it, keep learning, keep pushing, there was a drive that was naturally pushing me forward. When you're not on the right path, a lot of roadblocks keep coming in your way. And sometimes even easy work feels super exhausting and super tiring, because that's not what you should be doing right now. And that's your body and your mind and your path, you know, kind of telling you that's not what you should be doing right now. So at the time, it was amazing. I had somebody with me. And I think what really got me to this point was actually then the downfall of Womena. The first version of Womena, this investment network, which got a whole bunch of press and was really widely supported by the media, was not a solid business model. And me and my co-founder, actually, belief in each other was a very, very light thing to hold on to, because we realized very quickly that we were not compatible as co-founder. We not only did our co-foundership fall apart, but our friendship fell apart with it. And the business then, I kept the business, and I thought, I don't even want to do this. She was the one who'd studied investment and gotten in that space. So it was, that aspect was very much a part of her identity. And in starting that business and following that path, I was just reading all the books I could, all the articles I could, meeting all the people I could, learning from them as much as possible, you know? But then when that breakup happened, and when that shift happened in the business after about 3 years, it completely forced me to take a step back. And again, if I'm not my business, who am I? You know, take a step back and realize, what do I really want to do in this world? And what was really pushing me. And the thing I was most proud of building was the community of badass women, you know, and serving that community, teaching them how to invest, facilitating those investments for them, making them a real competitive, recognized player in an ecosystem that was super male dominated. And I was like, I want to keep serving that community. How can I serve them best? What's the root of the problem? You know, and I took 2 months, did a road trip through Europe, while I had a team of 3 people, and we were just quiet for the summer. And it was like, I'll be back in September and I will know what to do. And I did a road trip through Europe, and I talked to everyone that I could. And I narrowed down this perception issue and this realization that actually change lied in changing perceptions. And that media was that industry. I come from a media background. My family across the board is involved in media. I completely understand how it works, and I understand how to utilize it for positive impact rather than just money or just fluff or just, you know, propaganda. I want to have a good impact on society with my life and with the company. And then I came back, changed the whole thing.
I love how spontaneous you are. And
I mean, in this conversation, it sounds spontaneous. It's like 3 horrible years of like a deteriorating friendship and like never meeting your KPIs with your business and just depression, you know? So I tell it to you in a nice 3-minute segment, like it's how I got there, but there's a lot of darkness and a lot of struggle, and a lot of, it's been 10 years, you know, almost.
How did you get yourself out of this dark, depressed state?
I cut out the toxicity in my life. Basically separating, like accepting that I couldn't save the friendship. Like I had done everything that I could. And then I got to the point where I recognized I just couldn't save that. And I needed to find out who I was. You know, I was also at that time in another relationship that actually was not good for me. And I left that at the same time. And I also like decided on the changing the direction of Womena completely. It was, I really had hit a rock bottom of sorts, and nobody had seen me, nobody other than my partner in my relationship had really seen me go and how bad I was feeling. But if I'm being completely honest, I took that time for that road trip to be able to re-strategize and come back stronger and come back when I found that fire again and that idea that it was exactly what I was looking for, you know? But I should have taken a longer pause. And I think this is the advice that I don't hear a lot of business owners sharing, is that, you know, there's such a hustle culture and such a push through the pain type of thing, and hustle now, you can sacrifice at this age. It's bullshit. Like I really should have taken a solid 6 months. I should have told my team, like, you know, you should look for another gig. I'm so sorry. The business currently as it is not working. I will come back to it when I've recharged. But I had a bit too much ego in that sense. And I felt the summer's ending. I need to come back and I need to act as if we're stronger, you know, or at least not stronger than ever, but at least not shaky. Right. And I basically got back, wound down the business in 4 months, as I was simultaneously rehiring another team to relaunch immediately and seamlessly as a media company. So it seemed like an extension of the business rather than a full reimagining. And it kind of kept me in, you know, I thought it kept me in the community. It looks like we're growing. It doesn't look like we just had a shitty year. But actually, nobody would have cared if I took 6 months for myself. And Womena didn't do anything for those 6 months. And I recharged, got my strategy in place, picked the team, took my time, and came back 6 months later, like, all right, now we're here and we're ready to play. Nobody would have fucking noticed that we were gone for 6 months, right? So it was actually a piece of advice, especially for entrepreneurs who are so hell-bent at finding success in entrepreneurship. When you do that, don't forget to take time in between ideas to recharge your energy for the next go. You know, you think time is of the essence, but really the world is going to turn whether you're there or not. It doesn't matter. And most people are focused on their own lives and not on you. So take the time to properly heal, strategize between projects, because what happened was, that was in 2017. I wound down the business, launched in 2018, launched 2 different verticals in my company, neither of which we had ever done before. And in multiple countries with multiple people and the biggest law firm and the biggest consultancy and whatever. And by the time 2019 came around, I burnt out so hard. I was just fully burnt out. So that first, you know, getting me out of it was a nice little travel, cutting out toxicity. That was easy. But because I didn't take the adequate time, then when my new business was up and running and pushing, I was at my wit's end, like barely able to hold on, you know? And the only way I got out of that is because COVID. COVID forced us to just stay at home. I was in a really bad place right before COVID, and just starting to try to, like, I was still productive, I was still working, you know, but I wasn't and then COVID forced us to kind of like reassess everything. And I only got out of it after I literally, like, after I left from my lockdown. And it took time, you know. I like fostered and cultivated my own self-love in my house, and I learned about what I need to recharge when I can't leave the house for like 2 months or 3 months, you know. It was crazy. And it was 4.5 months alone in my apartment for me. So that was a lot of time to learn to balance. And then I realized that I had to move, and I had to do a dramatic change of lifestyle, because lockdown in a pandemic and isn't great. And so I've actually come to Egypt now, and I've been in Egypt for the last 6 months.
So you were in Dubai?
Pretty much here.
You were in Dubai when COVID hit. Okay.
Yeah. And Dubai is still home. You know, Dubai is still home. It's still Womena's home. I still have my team there and my family, but I needed a very different lifestyle for me at this time in my life. And I found that by the Red Sea, super remote, super calm, super beautiful. And I've been able to like get out of it. You know, 2022 is like, I'm finally out of that funk. You know, end of 2021, 2022, my lifestyle's much better, and I feel better, and I feel more confident. And I'm like, oh, finally. Okay.
Yes. Do you feel that Dubai puts a lot of pressure on you to wanting to create and perform and produce, like Dubai's vibe of? Yeah.
For sure. Come on, for sure. And it's the whole thing of Dubai. You know, that's you know, the American dream is so outdated. It's about really the Dubai dream right now. It's like they sell you this dream, this lifestyle, and the thing is, you don't even have to try, and that lifestyle kind of sucks you in ways. And even if you're Dubai light, you know, you still are taking in that hustle culture. This is a place that did not exist 50 years ago. They have built so much so soon that the whole city is running around building so much so soon all the time for all these people in all these places. You know, it's the hub for Europe and Africa and Asia and America, and everyone comes to Dubai for the thing, and everyone's there to خلاص, chill, guys.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So spot on. And to ask you a few more questions, I love your energy, by the way. You kind of went, we talked into Womena and how you dove into this, and you're going through your lowest points, and we also talked about like you deciding to move. But for you, like, have you ever tried being in a corporate job? Like, have you ever given that a shot and said, that's not a place for me, I'm just gonna start my own thing, I have my own belief systems and I'm going for it?
Not really. I did 1 month. In corporate. And basically it was when I first moved to Dubai, my dad didn't get the entrepreneurship thing necessarily. He was like, whatever this project is that you're doing, you need to get a job and you need to work for the government specifically, because there's also an expectation in Emirati culture. Now it's changed a lot, but it's 10 years ago again. 10 years ago, it was very much, you get a job in the government if you're Emirati, you're serving the country in some way, shape or form. And maybe you can do a small little entrepreneurial like little thing on the side, right? And the government, and I was part of these initiatives, had to foster the acceptance of entrepreneurship and taking those chances in the population. But at the time, not so much.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, you're working for the government. So I go and find the funnest event entity that was part of the government. It's Flash Entertainment. They host some of the biggest concerts in the UAE. They were the first movers in concerts for the UAE. And I loved it. I worked for a month. I was experiencing the different departments to see where I was really gonna stick in, but I was like volunteering. It wasn't super corporate. The team is really open. It's about events and concerts and fun. So you could get on site sometimes and you'd see the show and you get to see everyone's happy faces. And it was like lovely. After the end of my first month though, my dad called my boss and said, please do not pay my daughter.
What?
She doesn't need a salary. She's more than happy to serve the country and we'll have you donate her salary.
Okay.
Well,
why?
Listen,
why? I don't get it.
I'm still to this day confused about the breadth that Arab fathers can go to not lose their daughters. You know, I think for him, God bless him. One, he's the most generous man in the world. So he's always going to be by my side and he's always going to be my biggest supporter. But for him, I think this was a step towards my financial independence that might take me away from him. And that's a feeling that a lot of Arab girls have to deal with. They're not allowed out of the house. They're not allowed, you know, until they're married very often in more traditional cultures to leave their house or to be independent. Making your own money makes you independent. This is another form of control in abusive relationships, and especially in gender dynamics where men make the money, women don't. If women don't, they can't leave. If women don't make money, women can't eat. Women don't have the freedom to just take a cab and leave your ass when you're acting like an idiot, you know? So there's an entire, you know, system around why women are withheld from financial independence. I don't think that this was the most conscious thought in his mind. But I think it really came from a place where he wanted to show my patriotism, and he also didn't want to lose his baby girl so soon. But when I heard that, I was like, oh, hell no. Oh, I'm not working at a corporate gig for this. Are you serious? This is absolutely not. That's not my space.
So I have two more questions. The first one is, what are your thoughts on like faith, spirituality, like religion, or like more towards, do we have like a set purpose in our lives, or do we create our own purpose?
I really believe to each their own. I really believe to each their own. And all I hope for and I pray for is that it's rooted, is that to each their own, as long as it's rooted in love and acceptance and kindness. I think that's the most important aspect, right? And that's in regards to each other. It's regards to ourselves. It's in regards to the environment. If we treat everything with love and respect and kindness, then I couldn't care less which denomination, or whether there's no denomination, or whether you're praying to crystals, or you're, you know, pricking your finger and touching a voodoo doll. That's fine, as long as it's about kindness.
Okay.
You know, you can be as weird as you want to be. And I think it's so personal. I think it's such a personal thing for people to discover their own spirituality and their own path.
What is yours? What was the path or your path that, for example,
I say I'm pleasantly, I always say I'm pleasantly agnostic. I mean, for me, I really, really believe also, like, who are we to say what is what, unless there's proof, but even proof over time changes and evolves and we learn new things. So for me, I love science. I love studies of the universe and I find them so beautiful, but I love mysticism and I love, you know, my imagination. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to kind of entertain lots of different ideas. And I really think, again, for me, I don't need a higher energy of any kind to supplement my purpose in my day-to-day life. I find it is something beautiful that I'll discover over time and I'll experience and I'll make up ideas for myself. But until as I go down that road, I'm just going to be a kind, loving and respectful person.
Yeah. In the sense that you are highly connected with yourself, in a sense where you know what you want and you kind of go after it, and you know it as in you know it yourself. Because when you mentioned no, you don't. You just
sorry, I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, no, I really don't. It's actually something I have to try to figure out in therapy. I'm like, I can't actually hear what I want. It's very difficult for me.
But you did mention that like you kind of sense that entrepreneurship is a path for you, and Womena fighting for feminism. So I mean, isn't that kind of directional?
Yeah. Totally. And that happens about once every 2 years.
Okay.
I will get a moment of I'm like, oh my God, like I can't stop. I'm reading. And I know that's my thing. Right. But that happens once every 2 years.
Okay.
Before moving to Egypt, I spent 4 months in London, and I was like, maybe it's going to be London, and London could be the next place for me. And I went to LA, and I went to Nigeria, and I went to Paris, and I was like trying, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted. And I didn't know. I was like, yeah, I guess it could work. This could work. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess it'll be London. Like maybe, you know, I'll try to get a visa here, but then lo and behold, you know, I have an experience, I meet a person, and boom, I'm in Egypt, you know, a few months later, because it was so strong, I couldn't deny it. It was the same with Womena step 1. It was, we had 30 ideas. We were going around the same idea, every time we got to these ideas, we wrote out like 30. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time we got to that one, we would talk about it for an extra hour. It was extra passionate, you know? So, or now I know, like if I have another project after Womena, I already know what it is, because I've actually had that feeling, but I don't have the time now, but I still have that feeling about it. But it happens so rarely. It's so difficult to figure out what you want in life. And the most important lesson with that I'm learning is that it's okay to change your mind. You can always change your mind. Always. About everything. It's okay.
The final question, and it's, what's your definition of success?
You know, I feel like the conversation led perfectly to this, because my definition of success has changed so drastically in the last couple of years. And now it really is about finding peace within oneself. You know, however that is, for me, that is such I know it's a bit abstract, but it's so unique. So maybe for someone, peace for them is actually a very simple set of things that they need, and they just feel at peace within themselves. And maybe for others, it's very complicated, or they have to change a lot about their life. But to me, if you're successful, then you've gotten to a place in your life where you are at peace. And I think that's so freaking beautiful, because it's so rare. It's so rare to find people at peace. You won't find a single billionaire that found peace while they were working or chasing, or even it's not until they're super elderly and then they realize that actually that money didn't bring them any peace, and they're living a much simpler, quieter, calmer life. And I think people need to really redefine what peace, what they need for themselves to find peace.
Thank you so much for your time. And for everyone listening, where should they find you? How should they connect with you? Girl,
I'm all over the internet. Just put in Freiha, Womena, check us out on Instagram, Facebook. Nobody uses Facebook anymore. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're all over YouTube, guys. I have a show called Sabahu, which is good morning to everyone, and you're welcome to come watch anytime. I think everyone can find us online.
Perfect.
And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's a complete pleasure. And for everyone listening, I hope you all have an amazing, awesome rest of your day.